First of all, I really want to thank everybody who came out tonight. I want to thank all of you for coming out. I really appreciate it. We're starting off small, but that's okay. You know, we've got a year until next November, and what's really important, you know, is not how many people that we have that show up for this sort of thing, but I want to make sure that I hate to sound biased, but I want to make sure that we have the right kind of people. I mean, I want to make sure that we have in the beginning. We have the people that I know I can count on, the people that have been friends with me, the new friends that we're making that I know we share a lot of common beliefs. You know, one of the things that I think is a little bit unusual that we're doing is I just got off the phone with the news press, and the one question I was waiting for is the one question they didn't bother to ask, which has a little bit to do with why I'm the attachment that I have to this particular building. You know, the idea of actually kicking this off in a mosque building, I'm sure is probably going to irk a few people out there. But I have no problem with it. You know, I'm certainly more than proud to be associated with this community. In particular, there's a couple people who have just been absolutely amazing to me. We have Muhammad Al-Hassani over here, his wife Paulette, who I feel like they've adopted me sometimes. Hopefully I can pay back all the kindness that they've showed. We've got Ahmed Al-Haddad here, who has also been a huge, tremendous help to me. We have Sohail Zidane here, who has also been a tremendous supporter of everything that I've done. And all of these people that I have been fortunate enough to have in my life, they make me realize how important it is and how you can't get very far without the support of friends and family who are willing to take chances and believe in you. And as indebted as I am to everyone who has helped to get me here today, there comes a point in all of our lives when we have to do something that no one else can do. It's what makes each of us unique. It's that moment when we have to stand up and establish who we are. And even if it only lasts a moment, at that particular point, we're on our own. So, my friends, what I want to say is, tonight, I stand here before you as a man alone. But that's all right. That's no problem. I've been alone before. I'm used to it. As much as I appreciate all the people that have graced my life, I realized a long time ago that I needed to follow a path in my life that defies conventional expectations and measures of success. I knew I had to risk failure and rejection and chart a course that few people dare to take or even to recognize. I believe in the ideal of pursuing a worthy goal and following a personal vision, even if no one else dares to dream it possible. You know, the books and the movies I used to spend my childhood watching all the time, I was sure that there was a word for people who do this. Someone who was like, you know, Luke Skywalker, Spider-Man, and Abraham Lincoln all rolled into one. That's exactly who I wanted to be when I grew up. And as I got older, I discovered exactly what the word was that other people have for that type of person. Crazy. I mean, you know, it's one thing when you're a kid to have your eyes on the stars and want to change the world, but when you grow up, everyone tells you that there comes a time when you've got to get back down to earth. You got to get that steady job, the mortgage, the nice car, and maybe then you can be that good, productive citizen. After that, you can work your way up the ladder of respectability, do what all the other respectable people are doing, and then finally you'll be at the top of your game. And when you get there, if you want to ask, well, is there maybe something more? That's okay. That means you'd be a good artist, a preacher, a philosopher. But if you actually want to get out and prove that there's something else, well, that's just crazy talk. See, even my mic thinks it's crazy. I mean, people are going to say to me, you know, what else is there really? If you want to question the way that things are done, everyone says, good for you. The world needs more free thinkers. But if you actually really want to go out and do things differently, don't expect anybody to reward you for it. You know, unless, of course, you consider Prozac or lithium a reward. When you find yourself traveling the road away from respectability towards crazy town, you manage to avoid the lure of pharmaceuticals, both the legal and illegal kind. You end up spending a lot of time alone. And when you travel that lonely path with little or no guidance for anyone else, you're bound to make mistakes. A couple of days ago, I was putting together a bio to put out for this candidacy. And when I look back on my life, I suppose I could easily fill out a halfway decent resume. And as I was doing so, I was thinking about the things I've done. I was an intelligence analyst in the Army for 5 years. I helped manage an international telecom firm during the height of the internet boom. I've traveled the world. I've written a book. I started my own TV production company. But for me personally, when I look at all that, it's difficult not to see the failures. I remember all the times in between when I found myself. Good, I might turn this off.
The sound is okay.
Yeah.
Not too much. Get it back to each
I
other.
don't need that. Like I said, it's difficult for me not to see the hard times that I've experienced. I remember, when I found myself in the depths of depression or on the edge of obsession. I remember the bridges I burned, the debts, going into bankruptcy, all those constant doubts, the struggles, and the indignities of living a life that the rest of the world seems to care a little for. And when you go through all this, after a while, you start to question if there really is something wrong with you. If it's you, or if it's maybe the world that you find yourself outside of looking in, that's based on nothing more than superficial appearances and the desire for inconsequential things that really don't matter. Of course, the rest of the world is usually pretty quick to weigh in on that too. And they generally have a different take on things. But sometimes there's a crack in the facade of the world. That mask of respectability slips for just a little bit, and other people start to ask the same questions. Sometimes this happens on a personal level, sometimes on a national level. And when it happens on the national level, it might take the viciousness of a terrorist attack, the brutality of a war, or the tragedy of a natural disaster to break people away from all those superficial distractions. But it's not so much these terrible events that wake people up. Rather, it's our own innate calling to wisdom and to compassion that usually brings us around. And when we find ourselves looking to the most respected leaders of our society, and we see these qualities missing from the responses that they give to these crises, we all of us, we start to ask questions, and more people start to wonder if maybe there really is a better way of doing things. When we're told that the respectable thing to do is disregard the fundamental principles of equality and justice that this society was founded upon, and to ignore the rule of law whenever it becomes an inconvenience, a lot of people begin to wonder. When we see our government react to senseless violence with only more of the same, we have to ask if there is another way. When we see our leaders virtually ignore the suffering that's caused from one disaster and driving headlong into another, people start to realize maybe it's time for a change. And sometimes it doesn't even take a tragedy. All it takes to really get people wondering is something simple. Like say an undercover cop in a bathroom stall. Something like that, it makes us question how we choose our leaders. But the bottom line is, whatever it is that gets people wondering, I find that now when I look around America, I don't feel quite so crazy and alone anymore. When I look around, what I see is I see a nation that has more than its share of resume-worthy history. But I also see a people that have suffered through terrible shocks and depression. I see a country that has chased its own obsessions, burned bridges, a society that increasingly deals with mounting debts and bankruptcy. I see a nation that is now experiencing its own doubts and struggling against a world that seems to care less and less for our way of doing things. I look at all these things and I think to myself, wow, that's exactly what I went through.